So today we're going to talk about really ethnicities in the workplace. Oftentimes we talk about culture in the workplace sense, but we rarely talk about the things that people were raised to believe in another country and bring to the workplace in wherever we are right now. So we're going to talk about how to better include different ethnicities in the workplace and how to manage that. That's coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams, and this is the HR Hub. On the show, you get expert insight into anything related to HR. Please subscribe to the show or podcast to keep learning from my guest. So today, my guest is again Sue Ingram. Sue is a person who's interested in many things. She has been particularly interested in what makes a great workplace and has done training and coaching for managers on how to be the managers they would have liked to have and how to create the team they would have liked to be on. She has also done some training in her past around, in multicultural workplaces, which has touched on this topic we're going to talk about today. Hi, Sue. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good. Okay. I wonder if this is going to be a touchy topic because then we generalize. But there are some things that cultures, when you're raised in Canada versus raised in the UK versus raised in China, you're just raised with different ideas about how the world is. But we don't talk about this at all anymore.
No.
I feel like maybe 15 years ago we did talk about this, but we don't anymore. Do you know why that is?
I think it's a big thing now to sort of admit that you're multicultural and that you're accepting of all cultures, and that's a move in the right direction. Hey, we're multicultural around here, But there's still a lot of ways in which we can slip up around cultural issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not such a shock now to meet someone from a different culture, and many of us have travelled. I mean, I saw something interesting the other day about how many Americans now have a passport compared to just 10 years ago. It's a much higher percentage of Americans that now have a passport. So we've got the sense that it's not such a shock to meet someone of a different culture. It's quite okay. But we still are encountering cultural differences. And that can give us a jarring, it's hard to trust someone that you don't understand. And organizations work because we trust one another and we understand one another, we work well together. And there's a lot of subtleties involved in cultural differences. And we meet it all the time. I was in the US, I was training, there were 13 people in the room from 11 different cultures in one room. And that was just a gathering of people in a company in Houston. I was most confused by the manager. She was Mexican. Her background was Mexican. She came from Mexico. And she, dark colouring, so she wore bright red lipstick. And so when she said she was from Mexico, I went, oh gosh, I can see that so much in sort of vibrancy of her dress and the vibrancy of her being. Except I got confused because she could also be clinically cold. And I was like, that's not Mexican. Until she explained to me that although she was raised in Mexico and she loves Mexico, her schooling was actually Germanic. She was schooled in the German school system. I went, oh, now I get it. When you meet her socially and she's greeting you and going, hello, lovely to see you, thank you for you coming and all this kind of way, she was Mexican in her cultural norms. When it came to business, she went German. And there was a time when I didn't quite know who I was speaking to. I was getting confused messages here.
Yeah.
For example, the Mexico to German thing is in Mexico, your relationships with work colleagues are social. In Germany, they're not. So straight away, there's a mismatch. When people meet people that they can't kind of understand, they tend to back away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Go, I don't know, I can't quite read you, I don't feel safe. And they'll back away.
I looked it up for this. There's 7,000 different languages in the world. And each of those languages would have its own culture. And I know that some are more dominant than others or prevalent than others. But how can it make any sense to incorporate that kind of ethnic diversity into a workplace when they're immigrating to the country?
Yeah, the classic thing is a company should represent its client base. First, number one thing. And how narrow do you want your client base to be? Because if you have a narrow representation of people working for the company, then you are immediately saying that is going to be my client base. So if you want to widen your client base, then widen your ethnic diversity within the company, and then ask the employees that come from different cultures, how do we support, sell to, engage with different communities? And they will tell you. I'm thinking here about insurance, which you can think of as sort of highly educated, but if you go, a lot of the marine industry is Greek. So it just lends you, if you want to do, in fact, one of the big insurance companies in the marine sector is Greek. So, you need to understand the Greek culture if you want to be within marine insurance.
In Canada, we bring in a lot of immigrants because there's a worker shortage. I'm going to overgeneralize, but there's that Canadians born and raised don't want to do some of the work, like say farming work, for example. A lot of times they'll bring in a whole bunch of people from a certain culture. How do you create clarity? If that question was really long, I apologize. But do you know? No. Are you following me?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's don't make any assumptions that what will work in speaking to someone of your own culture will work with that different one. It will not. I guarantee you, there'll be some misunderstanding, there'll be some resentment, there'll be some loss of trust. Cultures differ on a number of things. For example, some cultures believe in everyone having an input into a decision. The Norwegian culture, for example, is very inclusive. Anyone can talk. The CEO is called Bob, and I can go up to Bob and say, Bob, I think we've got it wrong. I've got a better suggestion to make. Yeah, and that is perfectly allowable in the Norwegian culture. Yeah, you go to other cultures in the world where it's very hierarchical. There's many layers, Japan being one. You do not go to the CEO. You're extremely deferential to the CEO because you are a couple of layers below the CEO, and you certainly don't make any suggestion.
So how do you overcome those differences when they all come into your where some of those people come into your organization, so that you do have trust and clarity of purpose and clarity of the how?
You listen. And my best advice ever is to find somebody who has lived in both cultures. I'm thinking here about a guy I know who worked for Hitachi. I was coaching him, and he was shadowed. He was shadowed by this guy. Suddenly appeared from Japan and just went wherever he went. There was no official introduction to him at all. This guy just went wherever he went, and he didn't know, is this a good sign? Is this a bad sign? Should I be worried about this? How do I handle this guy? What's going on here? He didn't know this. He was also very frustrated by the Japanese culture of saying yes to your face when actually they meant no.
Yes.
In a meeting, they will agree with you. And he was a very pragmatic. He was actually ex-British Army. So he was very pragmatic. And okay, I've got agreement, so I could go away and do it. And then nothing would happen. And he didn't realize that actually by saying yes in meetings, they will not embarrass you. So they will say yes to you, but actually they haven't agreed to what you think they've agreed to. So I said to him, look, I'm not a specialist in, I couldn't possibly be a specialist in all the cultures. I said, who do you know that's a national-born Japanese person who's been living in the UK for a couple of decades and knows something about the difference between these two Pacific cultures? He said, there's someone in the office. I said, take them out for a coffee and say, this guy's turned up from Japan. He's shadowing me. Should I be doing something about it? And it got to the point where he could understand what they were trying to communicate to him. Because there's another big difference between cultures. Some cultures are very direct in their speech. What they say is what they mean. Others infer it. They infer everything.
Yes.
Don't say it directly. They infer it. In fact, there's one culture where if you want to give negative feedback, you don't tell them you're wrong about that. You praise everything they're doing well, and you purposely leave out what's wrong. And they, from that conversation, will get the message that that bit's wrong.
But if you gave that kind of feedback to me, I would not get it.
No, I wouldn't get it.
I would think I was doing genius. I would like that would be a subtle.
You've got to tell it to my face. You've got to tell it to my face. What am I doing wrong? Tell me to my face what I'm doing. And then if you ask some cultures to do that, they won't do it. I couldn't possibly be that rude.
But when you get to Canada, there is at least some amount of. I mean, maybe we aren't the most direct culture ever, but we got to find a common language, I guess.
You've got to find a common ground.
Yeah.
You've got to bring people in. You've got to say, welcome. I welcome you. This is our purpose. Have your joint purpose. I mean, if it's agricultural workers coming in, then the purpose is really quite clear. It's to harvest the crop in a specific time, in a specific way, to a specific standard. That purpose. So the purpose is clear. Everyone's going, okay, I get the purpose. I get why we're here. And I will pay you this. So you make it clear, you make it transparent. And then you talk about and then you talk about how can I include them in and listen and hear what it is that they want from me. I was working for a Norwegian company and they had an Indian office. And I went to India to do some training, and so it was Norwegian owned, Norwegian run, Norwegian head office. And I was talking to the manager there, who was fantastic, in India. And he said, we find recruitment really difficult. And I said, oh, really? Because you're a multinational company, and they had a fantastic reputation in their sector and all that kind of thing. I'm thinking, why would it be difficult for you to recruit people in India to come and work for this multinational, high reputational company? And he said, it's because they give us really good employee benefits. Hold on a moment, that's weird. So they give you good benefits. How is that a downside? He said, they don't want benefits, they want money. I said, pardon. He said, think on. He said, in India, we do not have a health system. We do not have a public health system. We do not have state pensions. So when a member of the family is ill, when a member of the family gets old and is no longer able to work, the family gathers together and the family pay for whatever is required. Okay? So the fact that my salary is worth 60,000 as an entity, but I only take home 53,000, because 7,000 of my package is going into pension contributions and medical insurance for me. Yeah, I don't value the pension contribution or the medical insurance for me, because actually what I value is going home and being able to give a contribution to the care of my grandparents.
Oh my God, that is so fascinating.
So be very careful. Do not make any assumptions. You may think that you're being generous to your farmer workers. So the thing to do is ask them, what is it you value? What is it I can give you that you would value?
So are there some areas that we need to pay particular attention as we have these really multicultural workforces? Areas of particular friction that, we'd be well advised to pay attention to?
There's a number of them. Number one is how they respond to authority.
Oh.
Number two, how they just say yes to you, even if they think you're a complete idiot? You're the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you may be saying, look, tell me if I'm wrong. And they're going, oh, no, 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 no. I never tell you I would never tell a boss if they're wrong. So you may be saying, give me some information. The other one is the way that feedback's given. Because if you give very direct feedback, they'll resign, they'll walk off. They'll feel insulted and they'll walk away, they'll resign. Because they will feel personally attacked. Whereas in your culture, it may be, oh, okay. Yeah, there's quite a number. There's about 8 of them, about 8 different, and it's some people are on extremes of it. It's quite interesting. Each culture is made up of a different pattern, so it takes a bit of time to figure it out, which is why if you've got one culture that's predominant, you need to find someone who has worked in both cultures who can help you out with it and understanding it.
So what can an organization do to bring together a really multicultural workforce? Like, for example, feedback, you said, and I can see how that would be the case. How do you ensure that everyone understands what happens around feedback and not to take personal offense, I guess?
Okay. Very good question. And the answer really is to celebrate the difference. So if I was in an organization where there was a lot of different cultures, food really connects people together.
Yeah.
Food is a great conduit so what's your culture like then? Yeah. So I would ask a group of people from one culture, hey, can you bring in some snacks for Friday afternoon? Something like that. Can you bring in what? And they'll bring in their national cakes and their cookies and something like that. My wife baked you this, and everyone can come in and they can have a talk. And that can very, very easily, anything like that, anything that kind of breaks that down. Then you can start talking and asking them, what's it like as a child growing up? What are you rewarded for when you're a kid in your culture? What was really bad? What's deemed as really good? Because that can tell you a whole lot, and lead those discussions. But you need to have something where there's no right or wrong. It's just difference. You've got to have a culture where it's okay. We're all working towards the common thing, which is the achievement of the organizational goals. And we all come from different places to do that, and we all do it in different ways. It's just that it helps us to understand those different ways, so that we can do it better. Oh, and then of course, as the top people, you need to be seen to be responding when you get information. That story about India, for example, and the benefits. As soon as this manager told the top people, we're struggling over here because these additional employee benefits are not valued in India, and they did nothing. That told you everything, didn't it? Told you everything about where they were at that current time. Hopefully they're in a very different place now because this is some time ago, but you know what I mean? It tells you everything. So you need to accommodate it and be seen as the leader to accommodate difference. But I'm doing it this way because this group of people would value this and this group of people would value that. And you need to have the dialogue. The real thing is that once people understand, I'm not being rude and I'm not insulting you, it's just the way that we do things around here, or the way that my culture does things. It's just the way that's our cultural difference. Once people understand that, they go, oh, that's okay. The resentment builds when they think there's an insult behind it, or something derogatory, or something. If you explain that it's just because that's the way we do it, then people just go, oh, that's fine. Okay, I get that. And you're just different to us.
How can we celebrate cultural diversity without caving to stereotypes?
So we're guilty of that. We're all guilty of that. And we will naturally be guilty of that because we will make assumptions. I made the assumption about this girl being Mexican, the dress and everything like that. I made an assumption that she would, address business issues in the same kind of fun way, which she didn't.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. Difference, we have to celebrate difference in every form that it takes. And it's not just cultural. It is gender, it is religion, it is sexual orientation, it is disability, it is the way that we think, the way that we solve problems. I mean, if you go into personality types and Jungian theory around that, it is our strengths, our weaknesses, our natural talents that differentiates us. It's our life experiences that differentiates us. We are totally unique, every one of us. And we come in a lot of different ways. And sometimes you can get people who are no longer living in their home culture because actually their personality type is that they much rather live in a different culture. We're so different and so diverse that the whole thing there is to celebrate everybody's diversity in all different forms, but all gather together around the common output that you are working to achieve as a collective.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's so much complexity to this. Do you have any suggestions or someone, if this is a relevant issue for their workplace, could learn more?
Yeah, I've got a book that I found really useful. I've recommended it to my clients. They've taken on board and bought copies and distributed them around the workplace because they found it so useful. It's a book called The Culture Map by Ellen Meyer, Meyer. She talks about the 8 main differences between cultures.
Mm-hmm.
She also enables you to map one culture against another to highlight the marked differences between those cultures.
Okay. All right.
That's an absolutely excellent starting point
to
think some more on this subject.
Right. What about reaching out to you?
You can reach out to me, LinkedIn, Sue Ingram, just go in there. You can send me an email, which is sue@conversewell.com. I'm happy to talk to anyone about how to understand, celebrate, adore difference in your organization, because it's not just solving your organizational problems. It's actually leading the way in solving our world problems. Because the only way we're going to solve our problems in the world is to come together behind one thing and work with difference. So, God, that's a heavy number to end on, but there you go.
But it's true. We're getting more divided, not more understanding, and it isn't serving us. In my opinion, well, thanks, Sue. I'm really thinking about those 8 areas of difference and how we can use that to facilitate better understanding, but not limiting ourselves to that. Sue and I did a different episode because she's a diverse person, and we did a different episode on performance appraisals, and a link to that's right here. Thanks for watching out there. We'll catch you next time when I talk with another insightful guest.